Welcome to the Routing for Success podcast, the show where we interview today's top logistics professionals, giving them a platform to share their stories and best practices. I'm your host, Jake Hirsch.
And I'm your host, Emily Blair. Today's guest is Paul Walski, owner of Warthog INC. We dive deep into strategies for employee retention, fleet strategy, and why you might want to reconsider delivering at 11 p.m. in Texas. You're not going to want to miss this one.
This episode is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. AP Equipment Financing can bring you the best deals on step vans, panel vans, cutaways, and more. Deliver them straight to your facility and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description to this episode or visit apfinancing.com.
Paul Walski, welcome to Routing for Success.
All right. Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks so much for taking time to come visit with us. Wanted to start off today with something that was really interesting to me that we chatted about earlier. When you picked up your first FedEx contract, your drivers had an average tenure of 6 months. And today you have drivers that have been with you for 7 years. Can you tell us your secrets?
Well, the first thing, I come from a military background, so I'm retired Air Force. And, kind of one of the mentalities we have, as we train and grow leaders is, you take care of the people that take care of you. And the more that you can focus on making sure that the driver understands that you're not just there, they're not just a face, a number, somebody who shows up, get in, get out, and you don't care about them. That's probably the number one point. The benefits, pay, critical, but just actually them knowing that you personally care about them is probably the biggest thing that changed from the company that I bought to what I started running it as. And, the simplest things is show up to the station. Now, if you're, the tyranny of distance that you can't do that, then you have to make sure your managers are doing that. But for myself, one of the things I was doing when we first bought into it, I was there, 7 days a week, getting it on its feet and doing all that sort of stuff. And then slowly work my way back. But I still make sure that I'm there at least 2 to 3 days a week before dispatch, what I would call gripping and grinning with the drivers, just ask them about their life, what's important, what's going good, what's going well, how do you run the routes, do you want any changes, et cetera, and just talk to them and know them by name. And, I've seen it pay off many, many times. And, greatest example I had was just this most recent peak. We had an issue just, the first Thursday, big day, and just a couple of my guys that have been there 7 years, just like called in at the end of the day. They're done early and they're just like, okay, Paul, hey, where do you need us to help? And we didn't ask them, we didn't do it, but they just knew that, they're coming back and they see me still loading that last truck of ICs helping out. And they're like, dude, where do you need help? And it was like, yeah, they were going to get a help bonus and that sort of stuff. But it was the senior guys who were like, dude, they did their route, they did their part, and they were ready to go home. And they said, no, the company needs help. Paul and the management team has cared about us. So, it's our turn to give a little bit back to them because they need the help.
That's incredible. And it sounds like, Paul, it's not only you showing up at the terminal, it really starts with the hire, that somebody is going to finish their routes. Maybe they've been with you for already 3 years. They're a more senior driver and they come back and ask how they can help. How do you approach hiring and finding those people that do that?
So we started just recently started with a hiring company, but they would pretty much just do get them through the background check, get them through the drug test, get them through that sort of stuff. Then we bring them in for an interview. And it's just kind of to a point, you talk to them about their background. What did they do beforehand? What are their, why do they want to change jobs? Why do they want to come do this? And you just kind of get a gut reaction from them. And one of the things is, over time, as you learn to deal with people and that, you just kind of have a feeling. You just get a gut feeling like that guy's going to be good, that guy's going to be bad. and you're right about 75% of the time. You know, you're going to have the people that they show up the first day and go, whoa, you mean I'm actually going to sweat and have to lift? It's part of the job, buddy. But for the most part, you're going to get those good guys. So there's still going to be some of that. And then, a couple of my little, questions that I ask is, hey, when do you want to start? And if they're currently working and they say, hey, I'm ready to start tomorrow, then I'm like, yeah, that's a bad deal, because I want to make sure they give their current employer notice, be it 2 weeks, 1 week, whatever they say. They go back, hey, you can leave right away. It's not working out. But if they're going to leave their current employer high and dry, they're probably going to do it to me, and that they're going to leave me high and dry at some point when they get frustrated. So it's little things like that. And the interviews, I'll do a mass interview on Thursdays and Fridays and have 3 to 4 guys, 3 to 4 potential new hires. And then it's just like, yeah, call that guy back, that guy back, that guy will just wait. And if we get desperate enough, okay, and then that one, like, totally no, we're not going to go with that person at all. And so it's just taken a little bit of time in the hiring process once you've got them through all of the paperwork aspect of it, to still just kind of talk to them for a minute and then explain what the day is, what the pay is, how we pay for helper bonus, how they've got benefits, all of that sort of stuff. And just really just have a conversation and see if they're the kind of person that, one, can do the job, and two, would fit within your own company culture.
I love it. Have you noticed on resumes, are there any particular previous jobs or anything that you look for on a resume that's an absolute yes or an absolute no just from the resume?
You'd assume that I'm reading a resume. So when I really don't look at the resumes anymore, because the hiring process just gets them through. The only thing that I personally look for is veteran. So if they've served in the military, I kind of try and go out of my way to hire veterans. They kind of get the whole mentality of sometimes you just have to embrace the suck. There's the mentality of, hey, there's an objective we got to get done today, and some days it's going to be easy and some days it's just going to stink, but we're going to get it done. So I tend to find there's a lot of people that have that mentality, but I find it a majority of time in veterans. So that's the one thing that I look for. And since I am a veteran, it's one more way to help out the guys that I've spent a whole part of my life with.
Yeah, that's awesome, Paul. Thanks for that. And thank you for your service. How did being in the Air Force and learning those leadership skills translate into being a larger FedEx contractor?
So number one is people skills, being able to just react and deal and understand entirely different personalities. And like I've said, I've dealt with FedEx, on the corporate side of people. I don't particularly like the way they do business. But I can still work with them. There's people that I have, a good personal relationship, and it's like, yeah, I can just, we just have a good relationship. And I've had other ones where it's just kind of not as good. And you learn to deal with that. So just dealing with people's, and especially at a senior level where you can talk to them and get your objective across. You don't necessarily have to agree, but you know what the final objective is and what's got to get done. The second aspect is just kind of critical thinking and planning in terms of, as things get bigger, as you get more and more packages, as you get more and more routes, how do you plan? How do you execute? How do you try and find the efficiencies to make, to cut costs? Where can I take risk? Where do I don't want to take risk? It's, to a point, risk management of where do I save a few pennies knowing that this is going to work 90% of the time. And then one time, okay, here's our backup plan to doing that. And so, one of the things we always had in the military were plans were useless. Planning is essential. So it's just going through that thought process and work. Okay, what am I going to do on this? What am I going to do on that? What am I going to do on that? Because surprisingly, the customer gets a vote on what packages are coming that day. For the people that are out there buying gazebos, there's some FedEx salesmen I talk to too.
What about
Come on now.
the gazebos and the trampolines?
Yeah, exactly. So, but, you don't know exactly when they're going to show up. But if you have your plan saying, okay, I can do this, I can do that, is, where it's going to be. And then finding what are the days that I'm going to go for excellence and what are the days that I'm going to go for good enough. And picking and choosing and making those decisions and doing it in such a way. The other thing is, from a military aspect that I was disgruntled with occasionally, was the constant, what we would call throttle jockeying. Is like, I'm going full speed, I'm back to idle, I'm back to full speed, I'm back to idle. And you're just constantly going, well, am I go, am I stop? Am I go, am I stop? What are we doing here? And I really try and mitigate that. So again, that the employees, the drivers, have a more calm, cool, collected, because there's only so much that you can control. There is a lot of stress that could come down on that driver, being at large packages, being the truck may break down, being those things that I can't control. Well, I control the controllables. Whatever I can do to take stress off of that driver's life. So when they come in, dude, I just come in, hopefully come in, my truck's loaded, everything's scanned, everything's good to go. Do a quick check, I'm out the door. You're going to have a great day. And so you try and get as much as that as possible in terms of what I can control. So it's everywhere from, dealing with people, planning, and then trying to mitigate the execution to make it as smooth as possible. And then making, decisions on the fly of, hey, this is what we're going to do. And maybe it is, we're just going to eat that package. We're going to eat that stop and we're going to do it tomorrow. And then communicating with the station on what you're doing. Because for the most part, they're going to allow you to have that flexibility, and they're not going to question, yeah, you had a bad service day, but if you told them about it, plan for it, here's my corrective measure. Oh, sounds good. Continue. and it just built a better relationship.
Would you say that when you are deciding the good versus the excellent days, is that usually something that right off in the morning when you come in and things aren't as expected, when you didn't receive the data from FedEx that you were anticipating? Or is that something that you're making that call midday where it's like, well, this isn't quite going as planned?
No, it's more in the morning. For the most part, there's a lot of complaints valid on DRO, because it's marketing versus reality. The FedEx marketing to the contractor is, here's perfect information. Here's everything you need the night before, so you can create the most efficient day and you can drop routes and do that. And I've seen a lot of guys that live and die by that. And then the next day they get smacked in the face because there's an extra 5,000 or whatever brought to the station that they weren't prepared for. And then FedEx has a million excuses on why they didn't know that was going to happen. And, oh, well, I have no control over that. So you just have to take their marketing as, yeah, okay, the large grain of salt. Let's take that. So what I normally do is I just go off historical data. And so been doing it for so long, I know the first Thursday after Black Friday is going to be the biggest day of the year. I know that when we take Monday off on Memorial Day, that normally Thursday's our heaviest day. Well, I know it's going to be light because everything got shifted to the right one day. And I know that that Friday, that Saturday and Sunday are going to be extremely heavier than a normal Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's historical. It's not that DRL told me that. So you have to trust the historical data because it's pretty much spot on. It's more accurate. If you just looked at what are the last 5 Thursdays, which they now have in DR, that's reality. That's probably what's going to happen. So if they're sitting there going a 10% increase over last week, probably not going to happen if the last 5 days. It may. So you can't be, because then they'll use that against you in terms of, well, we told you about it. Well, yeah, okay. What was you do. So that's where I'll go. And, some of the decisions is more of drivers not showing up. Somebody's sick, some family incident, something that just happens. and is dealing with those, because for the most part, our plan is going to cover everything that they're going to throw at us. And it's more of who's going to call in. And I joke with my managers, 2 people are calling in today. I don't know who, I don't know why. 2 people are calling in. Who do we got on the wall? Who's ready to go? And that's how we plan as a larger entity, is we always have that. We just know it's going to happen. And then that one day that nobody calls in, well, then I just eat those 2 extra guys, and they're just going to go and ride along, and somebody got an easy day because they're going to have a runner with them that day. But for the most part, 70, 80% of the time, 2 guys are calling in. And now I've got 2 people on the wall. We're ready to go, and we just roll with it.
That makes a lot of sense, Paul. You talk a lot about planning and executing and deciphering which days are going to be good enough and days that are going to be excellent. And then you also spoke about going to the terminal manager for days that blunders happen. And you say, hey, this is what happened. These are the contingencies that I've put in place, so this won't happen again. Do you go to the terminal manager preemptively on days that you know that maybe packages were missed, or are you waiting for them to come to you? And what difference does that make with your relationship with the terminal manager, and how does that benefit your company? Sorry, that was like 3 questions.
For the most part, when you know for the most part, as long as you know the balance of transparency, you know, how much do we want to tell them, how much do we not? You know, it's you know, another one of our, you know, military sayings is, you know, bad news is not like wine. It doesn't get better with age. So it's just like, just spit it out. You know, if something bad has happened, just admit to it, because it ain't going to get better if you hide it for a day or 2 or 3. And then it's just like, what are you doing? So as long as you build that relationship in terms of, hey, I'm going to tell you when it's bad, I'm going to tell you when something's going on, then they have more trust. So the relationships, regardless of what it's going to be, a new employee or working with the FedEx or whatever, is there's faith and trust. Every relationship starts out with faith. I have faith. I have no reason to believe that you're going to be good at this, but I have faith that you're going to be good. Then over time with performance, that faith becomes trust, in terms of, I trust that you guys are going to take care of it. And so now after almost 10 years, 9 years now, after 9 years, the station has a lot of trust in my company. When you come in as a new contractor, they're going to have faith that you're going to do the job right. And then over time, you build the trust. With that trust, then you have more leeway. You know, so if whatever, we have a bad delivery day, somebody brought the truck back and we didn't catch it, and it was a business route and everybody's closed. Hey, we're going to eat it, but they already have trust in me that we're going to clean it up tomorrow. And so they may ask if it's like massive, like, what happened? Dude, the guy quit on the route, came back, everything was closed. Okay, you're going to get it tomorrow? Yes. And that's it. That's the extent of the conversation. It's like, okay, we trust you. Done. And so it's building that transition from faith to trust over time. And that also dictates, hey, at the beginning, I'm going to strive for a whole lot more excellent days, because, oh, dude, Warthog does great. They're going to get out there. They're going to do it right. They're going to do it to the best of their ability. You know, occasionally life's going to throw something at them that, you know, you can't solve that day. Okay, no big deal, that we know that they got it the next day. So as you're doing that and you're building that up, then it becomes easier and easier. And the conversations is, you know, I see the senior manager, and it's pretty much when he's walking the floor, gripping and grinning, and I just wave at him. And, you know, we have our business discussions like once a year, you know, just like, okay, hold on, we got to talk about this real quick. Okay. And that's it, you know, so, you know, that's kind of what I strive for.
That's so great. I'm going to start using gripping and grinning. I've never heard that before. I think it's hilarious. I love that you have that relationship of trust. And I know you mentioned that it gets you some leniency when things don't quite go right. Has that also contributed to growth for your company?
Yeah, yes, because what they tend to do is when there's a contingency operation, we're one of the first ones they call. It's just like, well, he's got his business going great, you know. Can you go help over here? Can you go help at this station? And can you help this one contractor within the station? Can you do that sort of stuff? Do you have extra drivers? Because we know that you have your contingency plans already in place. And if you didn't use them, can we use your contingency plan over here to help this contractor out? So all of that stuff does go. And then from a growing perspective, then, when you're applying for normally at a separate station, because you're probably already maxed out percentage wise, the corporate FedEx, oh, we know of your business. We know you can do this. Yeah, if the numbers work out between you and the guy you're buying it from or whatever, we're not going to get in your way. So it does carry over in those aspects.
That makes a lot of sense. Paul, you spoke about targeting contingency and getting contingency by having those great relationships with terminal managers. Do you have trucks and drivers sitting waiting for contingency and waiting for those growth opportunities? And how does having that play into your overall fleet strategy?
I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. So I'm not a contingency guy anymore. I tried that for a couple of years. There's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of profitability to be made. Because I would say it's a younger man's game. Since I'm already retired from the Air Force, this is, I've been doing this for 10 years. Then I don't need the extra profitability that would come from that, because there is headaches and extra costs and extra, brain power that's got to go to that extra personnel and that sort of stuff. So for myself, I stopped doing that a couple of years ago. I will still I will help contractors within San Antonio. I still go to the other two stations here occasionally. I'll help out guys within the station because, again, our mindset has always been this is a team sport. Between us, FedEx, and even other contractors is if you take the mindset, FedEx needs us to succeed for them to do well. We are critical that they do well in terms of the sort and the loading and the scanning for us to do well. So it's a team sport to meet that superior customer service that we're contractually asked to be. So doing all of that is where I sit. For the actual ones, yes, your planning would have to be, if you wanted to get into the contingency game, and that's a great way historically to grow your company in terms of if you're the one providing the contingency work and then you apply to take over that CSA, you're going to have a few steps ahead of the competition to get it. So yeah, I would highly recommend it for anybody, but as my managers would say, the days of greedy Walski have passed. And I'm very content with my size and where the company is at this time.
That's awesome. I'm going to shift gears just a little bit. Can you tell us how you pay your drivers as far as per stop, per day, per hour?
Yes, all of those, all of the above. So
how do you know? How do you know which one they get?
So all of my new hires start off with a per day rate. And the way that I explain the per day rate is I do not want to disincentivize hustle. So if you want to get out there and walk with a purpose in every stop, you want to jog a couple stops, I'm not going to take money away from you. I'm going to give you a set amount of work, and this is what we think is fair. And that work will change based on, are you a brand new person? Have you been here for a couple months on what is considered, hey, that's, should take about what I tell them is I plan for you to be about an 8-hour day. Within that, you should have time for lunch. You should have time for breaks. Those are on you, but this is what I think is fair. Then you can make more money by helper bonus. So I pay a helper bonus. And that's where a lot of the new guys can get that extra 20, $30 a day is go help, because the initial routes we put you on are going to be short enough that once you understand the scanner, once you understand the navigation, once you understand the neighborhoods, you should be done about 2:00. So for those first couple weeks, do call them. You want to make more money? Call a manager up. Who needs help? Go do a pickup. Go do a sweep at a FedEx office. Go take 20 stops off this guy, and then I'll pay him a helper bonus based on what they do. So that's a quick extra 10, 20, $30 for an hour. All right, let's go. Then on my bigger residential routes, as you mature, as you age in the system, the bigger residential routes I'll do per stop. And a lot of that is just, again, based on you want to do more work, you're going to make more money. And so I have one guy that's been with me on and off for almost 9 years. Took a break in the middle, but he came back, and I mean, guy's insane. He wants to average 250 stops a day. All right, buddy.
Whoa.
Because I got him down because he was doing 200 stops a day and he was working 6 days a week. And I'm like, you need 2 days off. And this is one of the ones where I was trying to take care of the driver. I'm like, why don't you work and take 230 a day and take 2 days off instead of 1 day off? He's like, oh, can we do that? And it took him about a year before he says, yeah, Paul, let's finally try that. And I'm like, here's the math. The math works. I go, you can get 2 days off and you have to work an extra, 5 hours a week, as opposed to, you take 8, 9 hours back, and I asked for 5, then you get paid more. And he was like, all right. And he does it. So now he's just a beast, and he's averaging, between 220 and 250 stops a day, and is paid appropriately for that. There's other routes that I have that are a little bit further rural routes that I give a route base pay. So it's going to take you 30 minutes to get out to your first stop, 30 minutes to get back from your last stop. So I pay him, $20, just route base pay. Then I pay him per stops. So it's a balance between a daily rate and a per stop rate for the most part.
Paul, it totally makes sense to have different pay based on different routes. Does that ever cause friction between drivers if one is getting paid a certain way and maybe making a little bit more, either between the drivers or between you or your managers and the drivers?
There's always going to be it, because the grass is always greener, and people are going to look at it that way. But usually the routes that stay as a daily rate, so my business routes, those are daily rates. My 2 bulk trucks, those are daily rates, just because they're doing 70 stops, but they may be doing 300 packages. So it makes sense. Then as the seniority comes along, as you move between routes, then I'm just very transparent of like, okay, we have a route open. Like last year I had one of my senior guys who had been with me like 7 years. He moved on to work with a bank. And so he had a senior residential route. And I would just, okay. And then we go with a balance of seniority and performance. So performance is always going to trump seniority. But again, the guys that have been with me 6, 7, 8 years, their performance is pretty good. So, but it's the newer guys where performance will trump seniority in terms of when we are, assigning routes and your permanent route sort of stuff. So, it trickles down. No, I'm happy where I am. I'm happy where I am. The pay is going to be about this. This is going to be a per stop route. This is daily rate. And so everybody kind of knows what's out there. So they may not know the actual numbers, that each driver, they do talk about it. So it's going to be out there, but as long as you're just like, dude, I'll talk to you. I'm not going to hide anything from you. Yeah, this is what's happening. This is why he gets paid more. He's doing late pickups. He's staying out for the 6:30 closures, and you're done it too. You want to get paid, the extra $10 a day or whatever he might, or obviously more than that, but you want to make it, dude, go do his pickups. Oh, well, I don't want to do that. Okay. And so as long as you have the conversation with them, then it tends to balance out. It tends to, curb that, the grass is greener sort of stuff, because it's like, hey, here's what it is. You want to do it? You want to do it for a week? Yeah. Can I go back to my old route? Sure, buddy. And again, you tend to will find, and we talk about it, that guy's not going to be a good fit for this route. He doesn't want to do that. He'll say he wants to do it, but he doesn't want to do it. And you're like, okay, go try it. Give it to him a week, because we're still going to try and reward those senior guys. And usually after a couple of days, they're like, yeah, I'll go back to what I'm very, very comfortable with for that.
I know you mentioned your helper bonus for the new drivers. Do you have any other incentives or fun programs that you offer to your drivers? Anything particular that they really enjoy?
The benefits we offer, so we do, your pay, we do, the helper bonus. There's other bonuses I do, like occasionally. So we have the large package routes. We actually run those sort of things. And I usually try and build those with 2 guys in a truck, just because it's, everything's 145 pounds and massive, and gazebos again, and trampolines, So, but occasionally I'll throw a bonus in there for if a guy runs it solo, because he could do it solo, not every single day. But if we're short helpers, if we're short somebody, and it's just like, hey, you want to get an extra $75, run it by yourself. Oh, heck yeah, I'll go do that. And so it's always negotiating with the drivers and letting them know, like, hey, I'm not here to exploit you. I'm here to get a fair day of labor from you. And if you feel like you're being exploited, you explain it to me. I've been doing this for a while, but if you have a good case, dude, how about I throw you an extra $10-$20 for today? Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll work perfect. We're all good here. So as long as you're not so concrete and so stringent that, that $10-$20 means a ton to a driver. Not only is it the money, it's more of that I listened to him. It's more of I've reacted to what you said. It's more of I'm taking into consideration what you're feeling and having to deal with. And so the monetary aspect is usually nominal, but it goes back to that taking care of your people in terms of just reacting to their request shows them more so than your words. It shows them that you are listening to them. You do care about them. And that just comes back again to pay off in droves over time. Other benefits that we offer, we do have health benefits. We do have paid vacation. We do have vision, dental, life. That's usually paid at a discounted rate. And then, let's see, that's the big ones. Then my newest one, this is my newest genius idea, or at least it's genius to me. I don't know. We'll see if it works. So retirement plans, everybody wants a retirement plan. But from a business aspect, especially where we are, I know a couple people that do 401ks. I know a couple that do that. It's insanely expensive to do that. Just the administrative fees are $25,000, $30,000 a year. And there's just not enough profit margin to do that. But I am hard over on my drivers that I do not want them doing this at 65 years of age. In fact, I don't want them working at 65 years of age. So how do I incentivize you to save for retirement? And so what I do is a 5% match of their retirement savings. My initial plan is, and some banks allow you to do it, some don't, is if you allow me to split your paycheck and direct deposit to a Roth IRA, I'll give you a 5% bonus of whatever you're putting in there. So if you're putting, let's say they're putting in $100 a week, I give them just $5 bonus. Now it doesn't go right to their retirement plan. It's just bonus 5. And it's my retirement plan that's not a retirement plan. But if you just show me that you are actively saving for retirement, I'm going to give you a 5% match. And, I've actually had a couple of people going, no, how's this work again? I'm like, and you got to kind of talk them through what's a Roth IRA? How do I save for retirement? What is compounding interest? And it's a lot of things these guys have never heard about, know nothing about, because they're like, dude, I just got a big paycheck. it's time to hit the clubs. Let's go. And they're always like, dude, no, we're doing this so you don't have to work in 30 years. You can, enjoy the end when this becomes a very, very hard job in your 50s and 60s. That I don't want to see you here. I want you doing something better, greater with your life and doing that. And so I've had a couple people now. I just started that a couple months ago, and I'm starting to have some people trickle in on that. For the banks that don't allow you to direct deposit, I'm like, dude, once a month, I'm going to ask you, show me that you deposited weekly or monthly into a Roth IRA, and I'll give you the bonus. And so it's just a verification process on there for them to do that.
That's
And to say
so rad.
Yeah.
I love that you're doing that, because if you have a driver that comes in and he's 20 and he's going to retire when he's 65, that dollar contributed, compounded, depending on the rate of return, could be $80. So that's insane. So if he puts in, $100 a week, yeah, that's $5 a week, but compounded for retirement, that could be absurd.
Yes.
I love it. That's great. So we're talking a lot about driver retention, driver bonuses, and your overall staff. In line with staff, kind of outside of drivers, do you have your own mechanic? And when did you feel like it was appropriate to hire your own mechanic?
Yes. So we do have our own mechanic shop. We have about 45 to 50 trucks. So definitely at that range, have your own mechanic shop. What I found was it will depend on your fleet. So it's a big, it depends question. What I find is, why should you have your own mechanic? Well, if you take your truck to a normal dealership, normal mechanic shop, you're never the number one priority. You're going to be working off of their timeline. So if you're running a very tight fleet that I don't have a lot of spare trucks, I have one or two, but I don't have 10 sitting back there that aren't running, because that's a capital expense that you want to have, then a maintenance shop is going to benefit you because you're the number one priority. That guy is going to work on that truck that needs to be online tomorrow or within 2 days or whatever it's going to be. And so the timeliness of the repairs, the expedition, you're going to have a higher maintenance cost, but you might have a little bit less number of trucks that you have to have as spares. And you balance that between how many do I want for peak and what do I want to rent, and then what do I want to have. So the number one thing from a mechanic's perspective is timeliness. How fast can I get my truck back on the road? The faster I can do that, less trucks I need. Finding that mechanic is very hard, very difficult. I got lucky that I just have, and so the way I kind of replenish my maintenance is I had one guy that, sheer luck, I'd rather be lucky than good. He came in to be a driver, and then I was just talking to him, and I go, what'd you do before, and all that sort of stuff. And he drove for me for almost a year. And he was talking to me like he was a mechanic. He was a mechanic at one of the dealerships, one of the Cadillac dealerships, and he did paint, and he did body work, and he did mechanics. And so again, I got a little faith in what you're saying. I don't have a lot of trust in what you're saying, because I've also had a lot of people that tell me they were phenomenal mechanics. And then they're like, it's lefty tighty, right? Is it, what is a wrench? What are you talking about? So it's just like, yeah, okay, buddy. And then this guy just actually turned out. And one of the things that I did was I tried to make my fleet, I kind of took the Southwest Airlines approach. All of my planes are the same. I had, I'm changing them out now, but at one point, 90% of my fleet was 98 to 2001 Freightliner MT-45s. So everything was the same. We kept the spare parts. We knew what was going to break. We knew where the errors were. We knew how to fix those things. You occasionally get a curveball, but for the most part, it was just like, dude, we just cranked this through. And so I ran those for a couple of years. until, you pretty much run them into the ground, and then you start doing engine changes, and then it just becomes, okay, now I'm spending way more here on mechanic. And you start making those, okay, I got to upgrade my fleet. So for that aspect, the mechanics were phenomenal. You're going to have a truck breakdown on the road. Do I want to wait for roadside assistance? Do I have a good relationship with a roadside assistance company that is going to meet my timeline? Again, do I have a spare truck that I can get out there, transload, get that guy going? So I currently run, again, about roughly 40 on a heaviest day, 42 trucks on the road. On a light day, somewhere in the, mid to low 30s. But I have a mechanic sitting there ready to go do roadside service. Or do we need to get a truck and transfer it out there? So I have, of my 3 guys that I float as mechanics, it allows me to get out there and handle those sorts of things.
As you've started replacing with new trucks, are you sticking with the Freightliners, even though they've been a little bit more difficult to get your hands on recently?
Well, yes, I was. And then I started going to gas, because I kind of transitioned. So my fleet plan was, I was hardcore diesel, hardcore Freightliner, was very comfortable with the Freightliners, knew where to get the parts, knew what to fix, knew how to fix them, and that sort of stuff. And then since I'd been working with that 98 to 2001s, I kind of got stuck in this mindset of diesel engines. I'm going to be able to run this thing for 400,000 miles. Not going to deal with that. Then COVID, gas prices, all that sort of came in, and it was just like, wait a minute, I get it, and you start running the numbers. And I'm like, dude, why am I paying a $10,000 upcharge for diesels? Because gas is going to work. 250,000 miles on a gas engine, that's still going to give me 8-9 years on that thing. And if I take care of it, maybe longer. And then by that point, maybe I'm changing that truck out again, or that's going to be my old truck in the fleet. So then I started going over to gas, and then it was just like, what's available? What's the price? So I started picking up some Fords. I have 1 or 2 Freightliner gas, not a lot of those. The Fords actually were more available. It's really what it came down to. And then just recently, I'm actually doing a massive changeover to electric vehicles. So the state of Texas came out and went, we're going to pay 80 cents on the dollar if you take all my old 98, diesel, killing the planet, delivery trucks, and convert them to electric vehicles. And they were paying me 80 cents on the dollar to get the new vehicle. So that's where I am right now. So hopefully by actually the end of this week, I'm going to have some of the electric vehicles on the road, going out the door.
Wow, that's amazing. So I have financed quite a few electric trucks going into California in terminals that already have charging stations, and the grants on that are insane as well. So are you saying that I'm going to use round numbers here, but for an electric truck that's $100,000, the state of Texas is giving you a grant for $80,000, and you're only paying or financing 20?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
When
did that come out in
the
Texas?
ratio is it's through the Texas Energy, or it's TERP and Texas Clean Environment, TCEQ. I don't know what the acronyms are. It's the TERP and the TCEQ grants. And there's some that are, so I got 2 of them. So one of them was for 10 vehicles, and it's what I call kill a truck. So I have to take that 98 to 2000 diesel engine, and I physically have to show them that I destroyed it. And you have to cut a hole in the motor, a 3-inch hole in the motor. You got to cut the frame, that sort of stuff. And then they pay. The second one was just buy new vehicles. And that one was slightly less. It may be about 75%, 75 cents on the dollar for it. But again, it was still like, I can't pass this up. Here's $1 million, here's $1 million, do it. Now, the hardest thing was the charging. The charging solution was the hardest thing to solve. we have what we hope is a solid interim solution until the station gets charging on the belts. But like you said, yeah, California is taking up all of their resources on going electric. So FedEx itself, corporate, is not helping us at all in Texas at the moment. We have to come out with outside charging solutions, which, again, in 2 weeks, I'll tell you if they're working or not.
I was going to ask, how is your trust faith matrix working on the electric vehicles so far? Where are you at?
About 99% faith. So we're
All right. Well, we'll bring you back on and see how it goes. I'm very curious.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm really excited to hear about the electric truck market in FedEx. That sounds awesome. So we're approaching our time mark, and I want to be respectful of your time, Paul. Everything you've said has been phenomenal. But I wanted to shift into our FedEx 3 to Thrive, which is the 3 questions that we ask every contractor. Emily, are you okay with that? Okay.
Absolutely.
And the first question in our FedEx 3 to Thrive is, what was one of the most worthwhile investments you've made into your FedEx business?
For me, it was probably Ground Cloud. That's probably the next one. And again, it would be any system that provides navigation and the safety aspect of it, just because, and even the security, because with the Veters, and they were a good one-stop shop. I know there's some competitors out there that do a great job as well. So getting in with that company, whichever one it would be, that provides those 3 things, because if it's recognized by FedEx, approved by FedEx, don't try and do it by yourself. That is just an expense that, and it's too much headache. So that's probably the number one thing, that navigation, allowing you to optimize and move and re-optimize and add and change, allowed for that helper bonus, without having to take hours and hours and hours of time to go do something that should take you 45 minutes. So that was probably the number one investment, outside of I need to hire drivers, I need to have trucks on the road. Yeah, that stuff's obvious. But outside of that, that was probably some sort of one-stop shop. Not payroll. I wouldn't, payroll is its own beast. If one of those companies does payroll to your satisfaction, got no problem with it. I like to have my hands on I like counting the pennies. That's the one thing I've handed over a lot of stuff to my managers. Payroll is still the one thing that I do personally for every single person.
That is a great answer. Thank you. Question number 2, oftentimes failure in business is the greatest teacher. Do you have a favorite failure and why?
Well, you got all the great stories of, having to serpentine back to the truck because you're 11 o'clock at night and you got the laser scope, chasing you around like, dude, I'm FedEx, I'm delivering. Why are you out here at 11 o'clock at night? What the heck? It's Texas, hey, come on, we're all out here. So that's one of like, I'm the guy out here at 11 o'clock at night. I probably need to hire more people. So that's that's probably the one. So, the joke I was saying earlier about greedy Walski. Well, if I'm out delivering 2 and I'm out doing this, then, I can save a couple pennies here and there. And that means more. Yeah. Okay. Don't be greedy. Hire the people, get your fair profit. Don't try and get every single penny out of it. Spend some on your employees. Again, this is the marketing thing. This is where your faith doesn't become trust. A lot of people are going to sit there and say, oh, you're going to, a self-employed business should make somewhere between 20 and 30%. That's not FedEx. FedEx, if you're making 10 to 15%, be extremely happy. So don't get so greedy that I've got to strive for that 20%, because you're going to put so much stress and make so many mistakes and so many errors that you're the guy out there serpentining at 11 o'clock at night. Luckily I'm still got a little quickness in my feet. I'm good.
Wait. So back up. Is that an actual story? You were out delivering packages at 11 at night and
Oh,
you
yeah.
had a gun? Really? How
Yeah.
did you
Yeah.
de-escalate that? That sounds rowdy.
Oh, he was at his house. So it was out in a rural neighborhood. So he was probably about 50 yards away and everything. And I just started yelling, dude, I'm FedEx. Here's your package. I'm going to leave it right here. I'm good. And he was like, oh, I've been waiting for that all day.
Oh my
So,
gosh. You didn't see the massive 18-foot FedEx truck behind you?
oh yeah. Well, I mean, there was trees, there was all sorts of stuff. Yeah, you kind of see it. I mean, he didn't have the spotlight out on me or anything
Oh,
like
man.
that. So yeah, it's just good Texas stories there at that point.
Our last question is, what is your favorite part about being a FedEx contractor?
My thing was that's pretty easy, is just helping my drivers. And so it goes back to my military career. Enjoyed the heck out of flying A-10s. It was awesome, outstanding. I mean, just life experiences that you don't get. But what I really, really loved was taking care of people, being that commander, helping those people accomplish a mission, improve their lives, teach them to do the right things and that sort of stuff. And so when I retired and I was looking for a business to buy, after not being able to get hired by anybody, surprisingly, my dad finally just said, why don't you just go buy a business? I'll help you finance it. And so we made it work out. It was the opportunity to influence these young 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds that have made a lot of, decisions in their life that maybe not have been the best decisions in their life. Being able to have an influence on their lives to get them to a better place. Again, back when I was, at that 6-month retention and that sort of stuff was, hey, this is a bridge job. This is to get you from A to B. Now, as the pay and the compensation and that, it becomes less of a bridge job, and maybe this is a good job. It may not be your final job that you have in your life, but this is something that you can do for a couple of years. This isn't just a 1-year job, get you from school until you find the ideal situation. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy is when I have those, positive impacts on people. And like I said, it is the gratitude when you have guys and they start telling about, some of it you're like, oh, dude, kind of a bad decision, but just the ability that you can go out now and you're going to go buy a house. Holy crap. Did you think you could do that 2 years ago? That you were never in a situation that you had the credit, the pay, the stability, and the savings to now actually go out and purchase this, do this. Hey, I'm going to send my kids. I'm going to be able to go take a vacation because I help them plan a little bit and save a little bit and do that sort of stuff that they can make better life choices, not just your day-to-day choice of, okay, I'm going to take this package to the door and hopefully not yell at somebody while I'm doing it. So it's more of having that impact on people for the positive. Is what I really, really enjoy about it.
Paul, this has been so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Go Air Force football. That's all I got. That's another thing. I played football back in the day. So, I always got to give a shout out to the Bolt Brotherhood when I can. So.
All right. Go Air Force football.
This episode is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. AP Equipment Financing can bring you the best deals on step vans, panel vans, cutaways, and more, deliver them straight to your facility, and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description to this episode or visit apfinancing.com.